If you're ever thinking of visiting Mauritania, there is one question everybody asks themselves, but which is really hard to find a definitive answer to. And that question is Mauritania safe? I'm on the streets of Nouakchott right now, so I certainly hope so. Please press subscribe to follow my adventures around the world, and press the bell icon to receive a notification when a new video is released every week. Mauritania is a fascinating country, but it's one of the least visited countries in the world, which means there's not a lot of information about traveling there. So I'm going to offer my advice and experiences. To date this, I was in Mauritania in December and November 2017, and Mauritania was actually a relatively last-minute addition to my trip. The original plan was Algeria, but I've always wanted to go to Mauritania, so I managed to shoehorn it in. First things first, you have to get to Mauritania. You can drive. Algeria is the only country bordering Mauritania without an official border crossing, but Senegal, Mali, and the Moroccan-administered portion of Western Sahara all have open and relatively safe border crossings. If you just want to visit Mauritania though, the best option is definitely to fly into Nouakchott, which isn't exactly well connected, but it gives you a few options. I was flying from Lisbon in Portugal, so these were my options. The most convenient option is to fly via Casablanca in Morocco. Casablanca is very well connected to many European cities and has daily flights to Nouakchott, and it also has direct flights to Nouadhibou, the second largest city in Mauritania. The only reason I didn't take this flight is that I was traveling with a drone in hand luggage. Drones are very illegal in Morocco, and if I had to clear customs to change terminals, I didn't want it confiscated, and I also didn't want to lose it in checked baggage. This option via Casablanca is also a very good value option. Last time I looked, it was about $900 Australian for a return trip. The second most convenient option is via Paris. Air France has 3 flights a week between Paris and Nouakchott with connections from the rest of Europe. Apparently this is usually reasonably well priced, but when I looked, flights from Lisbon to Nouakchott were about 3,000 Australian dollars for a one-way economy class ticket, which wasn't happening. The cheapest option, at about $500 Australian, is to fly via Istanbul and Dakar with Turkish Airlines. Problem with this is that there was a overnight layover in Istanbul, which is in the wrong direction, plus a short stop in Dakar, so quite inconvenient. There are also flights to Nouakchott directly from Dakar in Senegal, Tunis in Tunisia, and Algiers in Algeria. The option I chose was to go via Las Palmas in the Canary Islands one way. There are no connecting flights, so I did have to overnight in Las Palmas, but from there it's a short hop to Nouakchott on Binta Canarias, which is a pretty solid airline. Mauritania Airlines also offers direct flights from Las Palmas to Nouadhibou. On the return flight, I opted to go via Casablanca with a drone in my checked baggage. I've used the drone in Mauritania and don't care so much if I lose it or it gets confiscated now. This option via Canaries and back via Casablanca cost me about $1,200, including accommodation in Las Palmas. As an aside, as of very recently, you cannot take drones into Mauritania without prior permission. And at the time I traveled, it was actually not possible to get prior permission since the law was so new. Since the laws were introduced after I booked my flights, I chanced it and was able to get my small drone, a DJI Mavic, through customs. Apart from drones, it is illegal to import alcohol or pork products, as Mauritania is a very strict Islamic country. Atheism is illegal and punishable by death, as is homosexuality. On arrival, you must get a visa, which costs 55 euros or 65 US dollars. Make sure to have exact change. Then your bags are x-rayed and you're finally in Mauritania. So is it safe? This is actually a really loaded question, and as I mentioned, it's really hard to find a definitive answer. Ask anyone who's been on the ground in Mauritania, and me included, and they will say it's perfectly safe. Ask any foreign government and they will say it's dangerous. For one thing, Qaeda is active within the country, and that scares a lot of people. This is what my government, the Australian government, advises. This orange zone is classed as reconsider your need to travel. This area includes the largest cities of Nouakchott and Nouadhibou, and apparently you shouldn't visit here unless you absolutely have to. The rest of the country falls into this red zone, and the Australian government is quite blunt in its advice, which is, do not travel. I'm not great at following advice though. This is the rough routing that I took through the country, though I ended up going a fair bit further east and a lot further south. I spent 6 days in the orange zone and 7 days in the red zone. The areas most relevant to tourists are in the Adrar region, which the Australian government does place firmly in the red zone, but most other governments do not, which poses an expensive problem actually, and that's insurance. If you venture into a red zone as a tourist, you're not going to be able to get travel insurance through normal providers and end up paying an arm and a leg for a custom policy if you can even find one. The reason my government gives for the red zone is high risk of banditry and kidnapping, which means if you're going to bother with insurance, you're going to want to make sure kidnapping is covered, which is insanely expensive for an individual policy. So I'd read all these warnings, done my research, overpaid for insurance, spoke to people who have been here before, and I was still quite apprehensive until I landed in Nouakchott, where it became pretty evident very quickly that the country is, by and large, perfectly safe. Now, I'm not saying that the government travel advisories are without merit, but I don't think they really reflect the on-the-ground situation for most tourists, and it is something of a grievance with the locals. There are definitely dangerous parts of the country. The northernmost borders with Mali and the entire border region with Algeria. Al-Qaeda is active in this region, but there's also not exactly anything to see up there, and the border with Algeria is closed, so there's no reason for tourists to go anywhere near the place. In fact, the Mauritanian government treats anybody who does venture there as an enemy combatant, so it's a pretty big no-go area. The last major instances of kidnapping took place in 2009 between Nouakchott and Nouadhibou, and there are now police and military checkpoints every 20 minutes or so along that road, and also around the rest of the country. Make sure to have several dozen copies of your itinerary, including your name and nationality in French, to give to the guards at these checkpoints. I'm not aware of any terrorist attacks or kidnapping in Mauritania in the last few years, and statistically you're much more likely to be killed in a terrorist attack in Europe than in Mauritania. There are also landmines near the border with Moroccan-administered Western Sahara, so don't stray off-road when doing that border crossing. But when you're here on the ground, or on the roof in my case, it's all anticlimactic. The towns and cities in the central and southern regions are perfectly safe. The people are extraordinarily friendly and helpful. I've walked around everywhere from Nouakchott to Attar, day and night, unaccompanied, without issue. Though once in Attar I did get mobbed by children wanting to play, which was terrifying in its own right. While you don't need a guide to get around Mauritania, I do recommend it, at least partially, since the distances between towns are huge, and without a car, getting around will be very time consuming, and getting to remote places such as Benamera will be very difficult indeed. Hitchhiking or bush taxis are perfectly viable options to get around or between towns, but don't exactly have a reliable schedule. I'm actually surprised at how easy it is, and if I was to come back, I would probably rely on hitchhiking a lot more. I did it once between Nouakchott and Rosso, and it was a thoroughly painless experience. One other thing to consider is basic health. You will likely need a yellow fever vaccination to be allowed back into your home country, and since mosquitoes are quite common, malaria pills are recommended. My malaria pills made me a little bit nauseous, but malaria would have made me a little bit dead, so probably better to take the pills. Though malaria doesn't really exist in the touristy parts of the country anyway. Western toilets will be available mostly anywhere that caters to tourists, except if you're camping out. Even the auberge at the Turgid Oasis, which is basically a campsite, has toilets. Showers, on the other hand, are universally horrible. I haven't showered in 2 weeks, mainly because I just can't be bothered to stand under some cold water with no pressure. The currency is the Mauritanian Wagaya, which is one of only 2 currencies in the world not based on a power of 10. The Wagaya is divided into 5 kooms, though it's unlikely that you'll ever see a koom at all, as they're all but worthless. It is illegal to take Wagaya outside of Mauritania. I'm not sure how thoroughly they check at the airport. I've got some stashed in my bag, so we'll see. Okay, and I'm back in Portugal, freshly showered, freshly shaven, and with 1,300 Mauritanian Wagaya. They actually do check your wallet, they don't check your checked bag, so if you want to smuggle anything out, make sure to check it through. And the officers at Nouakchott Airport are pretty corrupt. So I ended up paying a security guard €5. I just wanted to borrow his pen, but he ended up filling out my immigration card for me and then rushing me through immigration ahead of all of the queues. And then I don't even think I cleared security. He just took me right past it and to the gate. So it was actually €5 well spent. Right, I think that pretty much sums everything up. So long as you stay in the areas relevant to tourists, Mauritania is safe, and so long as you use common sense, everything will be fine, and it's definitely a country worth visiting. I've never been anywhere else quite like it. If you are still worried, get a guide. I recommend Chinguetti Voyages, though there's not really any other tour companies, you don't have much choice. They'll take care of everything, and if you don't speak French, they've got English guides, which is super helpful and makes getting around so much easier. They are very expensive though. Thanks for watching this generic travel vlog. Hopefully this was helpful. Check out my video detailing my experiences in Mauritania if you haven't already, and please make sure to like and subscribe. Happy travels!